Okay, so we're back today, and this time we're gonna do the front struts. Now, I let these bolts soak yesterday after we were done with the rears in PB Blaster, and basically the front should be pretty easy. We're gonna undo these bolts, whatever brackets is in here, sway bar end link, and 3 strut nuts, and it should come apart pretty easy. So. And I already have the car jacked up in the air. If you are wanting to know how to either lift the car or do the rear struts or shocks, I will link the video below. So now that we're looking at this, what this is going to involve is you're going to basically remove these 2 strut bolts here, this sway bar end link, and 3 strut mount nuts at the top of the car. So these are gonna be 18s. This I think is a 15, and on the top is 12s. So basically, the only thing I'm worried about is this, just because if you look at all this rust, all this nut has to back off all the way. It looks like there's a star key here, so X key or Torx. So that might help, but you know, we'll see. Another thing to watch out for is, you know, you have some brackets here that you might want to take care of before you remove the strut, because it might come with and maybe potentially break it or stretch it or stress it. In this car, you know, obviously this is not factory, but you know, I have this bracket here, which probably used to be attached to the strut, and I also see this one, which I think this is for the ABS sensor, so or wheel speed sensor or whatever. So you know, I undo this, and that should give us enough room for us to pull the strut out of the car. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm going to loosen, but I'm gonna leave this bolt in here. So basically I'm gonna take the nut off and leave those bolts in there. Then I'm gonna try and remove the end link, and then I will remove the strut mount nuts after that. So these are gonna want to spin in place, so you're gonna want to hold one end of it with the wrench while you get the other end with either a ratchet or an impact gun. And of course, alright, so what I'm gonna try now is I have the 18 in there again, but I have a 1/2 inch ratchet connected to it and a breaker, or I don't know, extension. I don't know how you say it. I just took it off my jack, and hopefully it gives me enough leverage to take this off, or at least break it loose. Okay, so I think it's loose now, so hopefully the impact could take it the rest of the way off. Yep. It's old car things, man. Old car things. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to move back to the top of the car, remove the 3 strut mount nuts, which are 12s, and then I'm gonna leave these bolts in here for now so it'll hold the strut in, and then remove it afterwards. So alright, I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I want to get the sway bar end link off first. Okay, so for the end link, it looks like the star is a 15 or a T30, and the nut is a 15. So what you can do is you can either hold this in place and use the wrench to back the nut out. I think what I'm gonna try and do is, because I'm lazy, is I'm going to instead hold the wrench in place and then see if I could drive the star through that way with an impact. So this, you know, might not work, but we'll give it a shot. So with an impact, you just want to make sure that you have a pretty good grip and just take it slowly and see how it does. You don't want to strip out this because then you'll have to cut it out. Change of plans. I think what I'm gonna try and do is break this hex nut off with this 15 and then try that again. Okay. Now this. Ow, that's hot. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to slightly lift the car at the ball joint on the lower control arm, so it'll just take the pressure off here, then I can remove the end link. See if that's enough. Come on. There it is. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I loosen the strut bolts at the top. I'm gonna undo that the rest of the way. Now the strut is now just being held on place by these 2 bolts here. So, you know, when you're sure everything is out of place, then you can go ahead and remove these bolts and then work the strut out. Pry bar. Okay. All right, there it is. All right, so here's where we're at right now. I've transferred all the hardware over to the new shock on the left. The right is still the old one, so what you're gonna do with the strut is you're gonna compress this as far as you can, undo the top nut here, take everything off, release the spring, and transfer everything over to the new shock. So I'm actually gonna remove the top strut bearing first because it's held on place by another nut under it, so it's not gonna explode. So I'll show you what this cross nut here is also holding the strut on, and taking off the strut bearing gives you a little bit more room to work with the spring compressor. Okay, that should work. Now there's 4-point, I don't know, cross nut over here. You have to take off with a hammer. What you're gonna have to do is get a punch and then hammer this counterclockwise. Now you can release the spring compressor, or I'm going to keep this in place and just transfer everything over if I can. So here's the new shock, bump stop, boot, this thing. Alright, so that didn't quite work the way I thought, so I'm just gonna, do this the old-fashioned way. So, I'm just going to compress this from scratch. What I do recommend is that when you should line up your spring compressor to the end of your, by the end I mean the tip of your shock or spring, because you're gonna find out that when you start compressing this and you go to install it on your new strut, you're gonna find that you're actually not gonna be able to remove this because the strut mount will be in the way. So just a heads up. This is not fun. Not fun at all. And as mentioned before, you're gonna have to go pretty far with the spring compressor just because the spring is so long. Let's try that again. Strengthy. Alright. So I got this cross nut started. Make sure you have your purchase or that your spring is seated correctly on both the top and the bottom. Tighten the top cross nut back the best you could before releasing the spring compressor. That's bottomed out. Okay. Now you should be good to release the spring compressor. Install the strut bearing and the cover, I guess, seal, and the strut nut. That's it. Now it's ready to be reassembled. Okay, so here's where we're at right now. So I have all the old hardware transferred into the new shocks or struts, and they're ready to be installed in the car. So I removed the springs, or I transfer the springs, the stopper, I guess, the strut mounts and all that. Now what I realized is, especially if you look at this one, is here it is. So this strut mount should have no play in it, but you know, you can see the bearing in here is gone. So you know, online they're about $12–15 for them. I need an alignment tomorrow, so you know, I went to the local parts store and got these. You know, which I'm glad they had in stock, but these were $65 a piece. So you know, note to self, or you know, note for the future, or whoever's watching this, just spend a little bit of extra money and just get these online with your new struts. Lesson learned, I guess. Anyway, so I'm gonna install these new ones and put the struts back in the car. So to install these is pretty simple. It's just a 22 mil. Or 21, sorry. Alright, now we're gonna begin the reassembly. Alright, so the installation is gonna be opposite of this assembly. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna mount these to the spindle first, put the bolts through it, and push this, and then push this up towards the top of the car. Start the nuts there. And I'm gonna torque this down first, these down, and then torque the spindle bolts after that. So So I'm gonna put the bolts through this side because it'll let me it'll give me better access to torque the nut down. So never mind, I guess I'll put both bolts facing towards the front of the car because it'll bother me if I don't. Okay. So I'm just gonna get these started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, now that the strut has been positioned, I'm going to push it up, start these nuts that hold the strut to the tower, and then after that we'll put the spindle bolts through the lower part of the strut. So you gotta feel it out. It's kind of hard to line up, especially if you're doing this by yourself, but alright, so what I ended up doing was I used the floor jack. Well, I first got one of the nuts started, and then I applied pressure to line up the other strut bolts, nuts, studs, whatever. And then I jacked it up until it was in position. Now, mine had washers before, so don't forget about those. And go ahead and finish the rest of these. I'm missing a washer. No, never mind. Alright, so what I'll do now is I'm going to tighten the 3 strut mounts or strut bolts to spec. The spec is 25 Newton meters, which is about little less than 20 foot-pounds, about 18 or so. So now that we're at the bottom of the car again, now we're going to put the strut bolts through and tighten those to spec as well. So you may need some help here, so either have somebody hold it up or pull the spindle up a little bit, or just use a floor jack on your brake disc. That'll be fine. The torque spec for these is 68 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. And again, you're gonna have to have the 18mm wrench to help hold it in place while you tighten it down. So the bolt head is a 17 and the nut is an 18. I didn't know that. and then 90 degrees. So last, you want to reconnect your sway bar end link. And again, you're gonna have to hold the nut in place while you tighten it down with a ratchet. So what you have to do next is just reconnect these wires that you may have pulled out and put the wheels back on, and that should be it. I still go for